Hi there everyone! In this video, I'll be discussing a demonstration on how we're going to create the Gantt chart. So here we have the format. So it's divided into three main parts. We have the tasks, the team member assigned, and then the number of hours or duration. So first of all, we have here the tasks, which is divided according to our WBS or work breakdown structure. So you have your deliverables, work packages, project activities, and detailed tasks. And then according to the project activity or detailed tasks, you'll be having there the number of hours. Next part is the team member assigned. So you'll be writing the full name of the team member who is assigned for that detailed task or project activities. And then the last one is for the duration. So this can be divided according to day, per week, per month, per hour. It actually depends on the complexity of the project. However, it is necessary for you to place all of the dates that it will be doing from execution up until the closing of the project and submission of deliverables. Let's begin first with creating the deliverables. So for this example, I'll be creating 3 deliverables and then we'll be working from there. So for the deliverables, these are actually your product scope. So what are the things that you will have to submit to your customer by the end of this project? So you can have different types of deliverables. You can have the product scope, which is the actual things that you have to submit. We also have a project scope, which is more of your example, wherein you're going to place it according to the processes of the project. So for a JRPG, an example of a project scope deliverable is the pre-production, production, and post-production stages. But for this one, we'll just be focusing on the product scope, which is 3. First of all is the story. Next one is on the mechanics. And then the last one is on graphics. Story focuses more on the plot of the story and how it actually would work in terms of a story, which is really important when you're creating a JRPG. Next one is for the mechanics, so this is more of the combat or battle system. And then the last one is the graphics, which is how your game is supposed to look like. Next one is we have here the work packages. So the work packages would divide your deliverables into these specified, let's say, as stated there, packages to make your deliverables easier to create. So with this one, you can create even smaller teams. How are you going to sort out your story? Your story can be divided into different ways. So you can divide it in accordance to acts, or you can mostly divide it according to how the process would work. So let's look into more of a project scope approach. So first of all, we have the plot, which is the actual movement of the story. We also have here the characters. So the character profile, their psyche, their background, all of those things which will then affect your overall plot or your main plot. And then the last one is the setting. So the location, the time, the world building. Next part is we have here the mechanics. So for the mechanics, we're going to look into how the main character or how the player will actually play the game. So for a JRPG, clues in the name is that it's going to be an RPG. So you're going to have to look into the mechanics of creating an actual RPG. Next one is we can look into the combat system. So for the combat system, this is when you actually fight the characters and the monsters for you to progress the plot. And then the last part is the equipment. So this is done usually with the combat. However, due to some of the complexity of the game, it is possible for you to place the equipment into a separate work packages. So let's say if your JRPG doesn't really focus so much on the equipment, it is possible for the equipment to be part of the project activity. And then the last one, we have here the graphics. Under the graphics, we'll be looking into the models of the characters, the models of the objects that will have to interact with the equipment, and all of those things. Next one is we'll also look into the graphics of the setting. So this is more of the world that they'll have to interact with. How you create the models is quite different from the setting, because the models, you're going to have to look into creating the design of course, the characters, the physics that comes with it. So if you're running, how would the legs move, how would the hair move, and all of those things. That's different from the setting. So the setting is an actual environment that you will have, that your characters will have to interact with with its own different types of properties. And then the last one is for the effects. So these are more of button interactions, your UI, so your health bar, your stats bar, all of those things are under graphics in terms of effects. A really huge challenge for this one is in the field of UI, how are you supposed to make it immersive? So one of the things that I can remember off the top of my head is Nier Automata. They have a pretty good way in terms of UI or in terms of effects, wherein their menu settings or menu bars is more of like the interface or the system of the Yonha robots. So that can be an example. Anyway, going back, so we have here the different work packages. We can divide this one further to project activity. So with this one, I'll just be focusing on the mechanics part. I'll be giving 3 examples again per work package. So the project activity, this would divide your work packages into actual tasks or actual activities. So what are you supposed to do? For work packages, it's more on the scope actually. For project activities, is more on the things that you can actually do. So with that one, let's move on to RPG first. So what are the things that you can do, or what are the things that you can do for you to be able to create an RPG? Well, first of all, you're talking about an RPG, you have to know the choices that you have to do. So for typical JRPGs, they tend to have different endings, like a good ending, a bad ending, a neutral ending, and so on and so forth. Another part for this one is for JRPGs, or a lot of the common ones right now, they would also focus on relationships. Depending on your interactions with these different characters, how would your relationship blossom? Would you be friends? Would you be enemies? Would you be love interests? And then the last part is the NPC, or the non-playable characters. So with this one, it can be part of the characters as well, or other parts. But for this one, they're quite specialized because they have much more limitations or limited interactions compared to like characters with different relationships. Next one is on the combat system. For the combat system, one important thing that we'll have to look into is the character stats. So your characters or the monsters or your team members' strength, their agility, their defense, their attack, all of those things that would actually help you create a more strategic type of combat system. Next one is their access to different powers or equipment. So this is more of if your JRPG would follow more of a Dungeons and Dragons type. Like for example, a certain spell book can only be used by a wizard or a warlock and cannot be used by, let's say, a paladin or a barbarian. There are also certain types of equipment that different people can't necessarily use. So not every single character can use the same items that you can. That would just result to a certain type of power struggle. And then the last one is we can look into your character's hit points, skill points or set points, and even magic points. So with this one, it can be part of character stats. However, since you have differentiated the powers and equipment, and an important part of your JRPG is the equipment, how it would affect your HP, SP, and MP is quite different for all of these things. So if you think about having like 10,000 types of equipment, which can individually affect your HP, SP, and MP, and how your character's level would go, the enemy's leveling, all of those ones might be actually quite complicated to just turn it into a detailed task. So you can turn it into a project activity. Next part is we have the equipment. So for the equipment, this is quite similar to character combat. However, again, due to the complexity or the number of equipment that you may have, this could be another type of work package. However, the project activities are quite similar. For example, we one unique thing that we can have is, let's say, the type. So you have different types of weapons. You have melee weapons, you have long-ranged weapons, you may have different types of equipment. There are equipment for male, there are equipment for female. So with that one, they have their own different types. And then specifically, an equipment can have their own stats. So how would it affect, let's say, the strength of the character, the attack of the character, the defense of the character. And overall, that would again affect your HP, your SP, and your magic points. The last part of the tasks is we have the detailed tasks. So for this one, I'll just be focusing under the choices category. So I'll just be giving 3 detailed tasks per project activity. So for detailed tasks, this is actually not necessary. If you think your project activity would take less than 40 hours to create, then it can be you can just stop there. Or also, if you think that only one person can do these different types of detailed tasks, then you can just turn it into one project activity and then just assign one person to do it. However, depending on your resources, like let's say your manpower as well as your time, then you may have this one. So under detailed tasks, we'll be looking into the choices. Under this, it's best for you to create a step-by-step process of what you're supposed to do. So with this one, it's best for you to reference your flowchart and see what are the things that you actually need to create. So first of all, for the choices, before you can actually create your good ending, your bad ending, or whatever ending, you have to first create what are the endings that you're supposed to do. So how many endings are you supposed to do, and what are those endings supposed to be? So not really what's supposed to happen, but it's more of, is it a good ending, is it a bad ending, is it a neutral ending? After that, once you've created your list of endings, you will have to determine what makes them different from one another in accordance to the story. So for you to get a good ending, you need to get these 3 points correct, and then you move on to the good ending. For you to get a bad ending, all of these 3 points have to be done in this specific way, and for neutral, you have another set of rules. So with this one, we can probably call this as establish trigger points for endings. And then the last part is you can create now the different types of maps. So probably create maps for endings. So create maps, these usually means the flowchart. So how will the story go for you to actually reach those certain types of endings? So one thing that you can notice is that for the detailed tasks, you have specific verbs at the very start. So this would help you visualize that one person is supposed to do this. Afterwards, we'll be looking into the number of hours. So the number of hours would depend on your detailed tasks, it would depend on your experience, and as well as meeting with your team members and your clients. So for the number of hours, probably for creating a list of endings, probably we can just use 10 hours for that one. Establishing it, looking or double checking it with your story, and so on and so forth. And then, probably you've created like 3 endings, your good ending, your bad ending, and neutral ending. So per ending, you'll have to establish those trigger points. What if, let's say, we have 10 hours per ending, so we have 3 endings, 10 hours each, we have 30 number of hours. And then, you'll be creating the maps of the endings, which is the actual flow charting. So let's say you need around 20 hours to create the flow chart of all of the endings. So you have 3 endings, and then you have 20 hours each. That would mean you need 60 hours. So here we can see a little bit of a setback, because for 60 hours, that is too much time for a detailed task. So what we can do is the following. So one thing that we can do is to turn your create maps for endings as a project activity, and then turn it into more detailed tasks. So to just put it quite simply, we can just divide this into 3 different ones. So create map for, let's say, good ending. Then we can create the map for the bad ending. Then the last one, create the map for the neutral ending. So all of these ones would have 20 hours each. So as you can see, the number of hours is again less than 40. Then after that one, we have the team member assigned. So every single detailed task or every single project activity must have a team member assigned. So for this one, you need at least one person. If you're working with multiple people for one detailed task, then you need to have a lead person. So let's say for create list of endings, this is more of a brainstorm type of approach. So with this one, you would need probably 3 people. So person A for the lead, a person B, and a person C. And then after that one, establishing trigger points for the endings, probably another person can do that, just one person like person B. And then when you're creating maps, probably person A can do both of them. And then for the neutral ending, maybe person C would want to do it. So you have the team members assigned. Usually you have to place the full name of the character. And then the last part is we'll be moving on to the hour. So for the hour or the duration, you'll have to look into the number of hours. That's why I've created it per hour here. However, you can have it per day. So like one day might have 8 hours, so you can divide it equally. However, for demonstration purposes, let's do it per hour. So one bar would represent, or one cell would represent 10 hours. So if this is highlighted, that would mean that it would take 10 hours of work. If 2 of the cells are highlighted horizontally, not vertically, that would mean that you would have a total of 20 hours per work. This would also determine is when you will stop and when you will actually end. So when it comes to determining the duration, you also have to look into, aside from the number of hours, the succession. So can you do things, 2 things at the same time? Are they dependent from each other? So does that mean that you have to do something first before you can do another thing? Or maybe you can do them at the same time. Or maybe one person is doing 2 things that can be done at the same time. What does he or she prioritize first? So let's have a demonstration of this one. So first of all, for a multiple team member, something like this, it's best for you to just have the lead as your basis for this. So for the hour, this is your very first one. So we'll be starting off with just 1 bar or hour 0. As you can see, the number of hours is 10. So with that one, you'll just be needing to highlight 1 bar. So you can do this by going through this bucket tool over here and then assigning a color. So when it comes to color, it is best for you to have a color code. So for, let's say, person A can have a red color, person B can have like a yellow color, person C can have a green color. It would depend on you. So you can do something like this, highlight the names, the person of the name in that color and then highlight it right here. However, it's not necessary for you to do this one. Then you can just simply do this one. So the importance of this is that you're able to create a more easily visually digestible type of Gantt chart. So basically you can just see it once and then you know what you're supposed to do, instead of having like different or just having one color for all of the team members. It might be quite difficult to ascertain. Next one is establish trigger points for endings. So what's really important here is that before you can create this detailed task, you have to first have the create list of endings. So that would mean you can't necessarily place this right here by hour 0 because you're still currently creating the create list of endings. So you have to do it after. So we'll be starting here at the end of hour 10 by around hour 20. So as you can see right here, the number of hours is 30. So you'll be using 3. So again, highlight that one. Since this is person B, who is different of course from person A, you'll be using a different color. So probably we can use a yellow color. So you have it there. The last one is to create the different maps. So after you've created your trigger points, then you can create the maps. So it is not possible for you to place it within this part right here or within hour 20, 30, or 40. It is because you're still doing the trigger points. Once you have established that one, that is the only time when you can actually create the map. So with this one, we'll be starting off with hour 50. You'll be using 20 hours, so you have to highlight 2 bars right here. And then since we're talking about person A, you have to use the same color. So it should still be color red. Next one we have here for person A, he'll be doing another 20 hours for the bad ending. So with this one, it's not possible for that person to do 2 things at the same time. So with this one, we can do one of 2 things. Number 1, after person A has done the good ending map, he can then do the bad ending map. So we'll be starting off by hour 70, and if there's an hour 80 right here, then we can highlight that one. Or another thing that, so this is more of if you have lesser team members. However, if you don't have a lot of time, what you can do is to assign another person, person B, and then let person B do the create a map for the bad ending around the same time as creating the map for the good ending. And then the last one for person C, we can create a map for the neutral ending. So it kind of looks like this. So this is the expected sample that I would like to see when you will be creating your Gantt chart. So for your activity, it's basically placed already right here, your deliverables most of the time. So with that, I hope you were able to understand it. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask through commenting or through the use of our social media accounts. With that, I hope you were able to understand. Have a good day and stay safe.